And welcome. I am the database guy. Please, as always, like and subscribe. And we're up to presentation number 9, video 1. And that brings us into, yes, you guessed it, Visual Basic, right here. And we're going to be beginning our journey in VBA, which is going to be a long one. This is probably a course within a course. You can get crazy with VBA, but I think it's going to be enough to give you what you need. And so one of the things we first must know about Visual Basic, and you've seen it before, you can access it from your database tools menu, or you can simply Alt and F11, and you're in there. Okay, so let us first take a look at this navigate here. You have a project window, and in here right now we're seeing all the forms that we have. There are no modules or class modules, nothing there to begin with. And so whatever is in these forms, the scope of it is within those forms. There's nothing, of course, in this one, so why we even have code there is questionable. Here, again, and so on. So the scope of what's running within here, and if you look, we see where we are here. We're in this area. If I click into this area, you'll see it change up here. So depending upon what control you're in, control will have many events. So for example, in our command active, which is the control we're in the click event, which is highlighted, the only one we have. You have a double click and enter, exit, and so on. I'm not going to go down to what those are exactly. If I go into my text box, I'm going to have a couple more. I'm going to have an after update, a before update, and a change when I change data within there. That's a little brutal one, the change one. Typically after update is used, you might even use before update. And then there's all the way down to undo. Now obviously when you're here, there is no undo because you can undo, and that's one of the methods. These are sort of, in some cases they can be methods, but they're actually event procedures that you can initiate within it. Some of the other ones that you might have, and we talked about command boxes on not in the list or something like that, you're going to have certain events based upon the capability of your control, okay? And most of them have the click, and some of them have a double click. Now, why you would want a double click, I don't know. And this dirty one we'll get into at some way later point in time. But in here, the scope of what happens here happens only, and you see the word private. It happens only within these events and only within the form. And so what's happening in the active event here, click, is not going to confuse itself with what happens here in the ISBN click. They're separate events and they're private and they don't get involved with one another. But you can write code in a module to run when you click on an active button or the command active click event. You can do that. And when you do it, what's going to happen is you are going to only initiate that and then it will stop. In other words, if I had code running or code written here, nothing would happen if I'm clicking the command active button. And similarly, nothing's going to happen if I click the ISBN field or text box. So even the subforms will have some code here as well. Let's get into the first thing about this. Let's go over to our tools and now the references portion. This is enormous. Right now, for running basic Visual Basic code, or the minimum requirements, not basic, but the minimum requirements for Visual Basic code, as you see, are these 4. And the first one, obviously, is the Visual Basic for applications. The second one is your Access Object Library, meaning I have to access, or I have to have connection to access objects, right? Why would I want to run code without having access to a command button or a combo box or a list box? Would make no sense, or a form for that matter. OLE automation is a simple automation one. Now, if we click on these, let me see where they are here. You're going to see here where it's located and what language it's in. Same here. This automation one is simply a generalized automation, and you need to have it. And then, of course, the Office database engine. Without this, we could not access table information, which we will see down the road. It's really fun that you can get into table information, parse it, and list it out if you wish. Okay, if you wanted more, needed to get into Word or Outlook, you would need to, or some kind of SQL Server or something, you would have to, or even Acrobat, you would have to have those references present. If you didn't, you couldn't get to the coding for those objects. And so in other words, I couldn't here do an export to Word without having access to the Word references. Um, and let's just, for sake of argument, go into it just to show you. Let's see, Microsoft. Let's see. Well, first we'll go to some well-known ones. Well, there's a DAO, and that one there, we're going to need that one for uh, accessing record sets. So I'm going to click that one right now just as a fail-safe. If we don't have that, we can't really get into the DAO is internal database access objects, but it is really, if I'm going to get information from tables, I need that. If I'm going outside, and you can see it a few lines above, ADO, if I'm going to SQL, I will need ADO. That's external data, okay? And let's see, I'm not worried about DirectX or anything. There's the Excel object library. If I want to get to an Excel object, I need that one. Let's see what else we got here. We should have Word coming up. Internet controls, I'm not worried about that, but we have the Office, general Office library objects. We may need that for Outlook and other things. Unless there's an Outlook one, and let's just see, I don't know if there is one. There it is, the Outlook object library. You see it there. PowerPoint libraries, publishers. So you can connect with all kinds of Microsoft applications through here. Visual Studio, well, we don't want to worry about that. That's more, but let's see if we can see Word, and we should. Media Player, Word. There's our Word library, and so on. We're going to click OK. Whoa, we have an error in loading that DLL. It's Dynamic Link Library, so let's see here why we had an error in loading that one. Let's, I don't know why. Let's try what happens if we Acrobat loaded. I don't know. I'm going to take Acrobat off. Click OK. And if I can go to it. Why it gave me an issue with DAO, I don't know. It shouldn't. Some error with that one. We don't know. In any event, it could be something to do with, let's see if we can't compact and repair. Maybe we have an issue going on, and let's go back into Visual Basic and see if we can't load it one more time. We're not worried about it right now. It may just be some sort of fluke. No, it doesn't like it. Okay, so let us now open this up here. Get into what we're seeing here. So this immediate window is for debugging your program, getting output. The window you see here, anything displayed here, any code comes up from there, right? And here is our properties. So, and we'll see that if we can open up, let's see, and if we go to, let's see, form, and yeah, when we don't have any code present, we go to something, we can see its properties. Now, we don't need to worry about properties from here. It's our form, and then if we go down here, we can see some other things and other properties. These were all seen in when we're dealing with the forms itself in general, so we don't really need to see it here. I'm going to get properties and turn that off for this moment. Okay, so now we're looking at scope, and as I said, anything here is are private and they're run within those form event procedures. We're going to insert a module. And actually, let's view the properties while we're at it, because I should have left it up to show you this one. And you're going to see the property of that module, and we can name it functions. All right. And you'll notice you'll see something up here. Go to sorry, not references, but objects. Required variable declarations checked, as well as all of these here are checked. This line here forces you to declare a variable. If you don't, it's going to error out. So I'm going to show you. We're going to write a function. It's either a function or a subroutine, a sub function, and test it. And when you do that, it will create this bracketed beginning and end of the function. And if I say equals 5, and I go to debug this, sorry, variable was not defined. Not a good thing, right? Not good at all. So you can define that variable here. And really, when we're doing this, we're not going to put this as, I'm going to write this differently. You should always, always write your variables, data, as, and IntelliSense comes up. So we should always write them as what is the type of data type you have, and the name. And as you saw, after I hit the as, IntelliSense came up. And you have different types of data types. You have string, you have Boolean, you have double, which is a decimal point. You have variant, which could be anything, an object, which could be a generalized kind of thing, which can store a lot of data. You can have a long integer. You can have all kinds of data types that you're in there. Now, it's over here, say integer data equals 5, and then we're going to debug dot print, and this is a way of debugging, and you're going to see this in our immediate window. Now, function F5 should run, and it doesn't. Function F6 doesn't. 5, 4, no. Yeah, they say function F5 should, but what we'll do is we're going to run right here. Type the word in, test it. And there you see the output, right? I set a variable, I have the output. Now, what I'm going to do here, global, you can have public or global. Global is an all around, and you're going to say integer data as integer. Now, it might give us an issue because it won't know which one to use, but let's try test it. And there we go. And then if I do a debug dot print and watch this, I get nothing because the global variable wasn't set to anything. The one that was local, again, in scope to this, was set to it. Now watch what I'm going to do. I'm going to take out the one here. Globally, I've already said this is the integer data, and so it should take it. I'm going to just, we should get the same result, and we do. But now, debug.print, and lo and behold, it sets the global variable. So now, what I want you to understand is that that variable will always be set, and it will be utilized somewhere in the application wherever you need it. But when you set it in a function, it goes away once the function is run. Okay, it's no longer active, and I can't get access to it. Now I could set, let's see what happens. It might error out, and I think it should. because now I have a public and a global. Let's do a debug and a compile. Yeah, we have an ambiguous now. It's going, wait a minute, you can't say the same thing twice. But now let's see what happens here. I'm going to comment this out. And up top here, you have uncomment or comment the block. And what that does is it deactivates the code from running. Let's see what happens now. I compile it, no problem. And always compile your data, run it, and now debug dot print. And let's see. So what was the difference between the two of them, global and public? Well, public resides within the entire uh, area of the module. Let's go back to the other side. Yeah, we're going to say yes to all of this, and that's fine. Let's create a form, blank form, in design view. And let's put a button on that form, something we can press. It doesn't matter what. And we're not going to do anything with that. We're going to call this one press me for our, here we go. And then we're going to come into here and we're going to have this as command press, right? Good enough. And we're going to save this form as form test, as our test form, okay? Because I want to show you. So let's see if we see that. And we'll do a save. We don't have to save. We don't have to save. But grayed out. So we're not seeing anything here from form test, are we? No. All right. So let's go into our form. Let's if we press, nothing happens. Obviously, let's and here properties. We're going to go into the event, and the event we want is the on click. We're going to click onto the 3 ellipsis and try code builder. And that's going to bring us in, and now you'll see form test exists, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to come here and close it. It's going to ask us to save it, and certainly we will. So now here, right, I want to, and you'll notice option compare database means it looks throughout the whole database for everything it needs. You need to have that as well as the explicit. We're going to say debug.print integer.data. So let's try to debug and see if we can even accept that. We can. We absolutely can. And that's fine because it's a public one, public variable. So let's see what happens when we print that, when we run that. Let me just go take this out here. Let's go and let's open this and see if it does anything. We hit it. Let's go back to our code. And sure enough, 5 shows up. So whether we use global or public, it doesn't really matter too much. Global means it goes throughout the database. Public does go throughout the database, but there are some restrictions on it. I believe you couldn't access it through. We can try it. Let's insert another module. So you can see the scope here, and this we're going to call data. And here we're going to have function try it. Let's see, because I don't know. It'll work, and it should. Yeah, that's fine. So now we're going to go down here, try it, see what happens. And we get the 5 as well. So between modules, we can connect stuff. And we can connect it from anywhere we want. So whether it's public or global is a, you know, is sort of one and the same thing. Could be public or global. Global is more of, it extends a little bit further. Okay, it does. Okay, and so now let us go back to our form test, right? Let's see, where are we? Click into that one. So if we have to dim or declare implicitly variables, integer new as integer. And then we're going to say integer new equals 12 and debug integer data plus integer new. Okay. So here's something that's interesting. Debug and compile it and save it. We're going to go back here. We're going to press that button and come back into here, and we got 17. But if we go and we say debug dot print integer new, we got nothing, not even 0. But if we do the debug dot print integer data, we surely get 5. So it's saying that we can't even access something in a private uh, subroutine, right? We can't do that. So can we do something public? And that's another type of wording. Public sub, I'm sorry. Let's see what it does. It does create it, and it says the word public versus private. Okay. And now let us see what happens if we take the same information here. We place it in here. All right. And over here, we take this out and we say, I think it's run test 2. And let's see. Um, No, we just have to say test 2, I think, no run. Because we're not, let's see. We should be, since it's a subroutine. There we go, it's fine now. So if we click this now, our integer now is in a public area, right, declared. We might be able to access it from there. Let's see what happens. Okay. So we got 17. And let's see now, debug dot print integer data is 5 and debug dot print integer new. Nothing. Once again, nothing. Nothing's there. All right, so here's what we're going to do. So the public subroutine is accessible from any one of your private events that's in a form. We're going to put this in here now. And actually, we can't. We're going to just say public on this. We're going to see if the scope changes of this. We're going to do a debug compile, and save. All right, let's see now. If we make the variable public within the whole routine, do we have access to it after it's done running? And we hit it once again. We come back over here. There's our 17. Debug.print. Oh boy, let me good. Sure, and let's try new one. Let's see what happens. Nothing again. Nothing again. All right. Even though it's public and it's accessible from any single one of those routines, right? So we started out with putting it in private. It's only accessible to private. We put a public test in here, and any one of these private events can access that data, but again, only to that form. And even if we put the variable public here, every single one, anything that's in here could access that variable, but again, only public to this form. Now, if we take this out of here, go back to our module, um, and we put this in, I'm going to put it in as global, see what happens. Should not matter. It'll just be a greater scope. And I would be careful with that. Good. Yep, good. Now we're going to run it again. What do you think is going to happen? Should we see both variables? I think so. We should have access to both. So we hit it. Good, good. All right, now we're at 12. Once again, we're at 12 now. So let's see here. So hang on. All right, yeah. So we see where we are in the on-click routine. Hang on a minute. Yeah, okay. So runs test 2, and wait a minute. Hold on a minute. Let me go back to that. Come back here and undo this, and what happened? All right. All right. So we ran it at 12. So let's yeah, I know. Debug.print integer data 0. And that's why, because we lost our routine that's in there. We've got to put that routine back in. Somehow the function disappeared. Let's go here to the on click. Well, we don't have to even have that in there. We can just say integer. Well, hold on a moment. Let's debug print the other one. Integer. What is the other one? New. And new is 0 as well. Okay, so let's set it up here. So integer new equals 12. And debug dot print integer new plus integer data. All right. I don't know where it went or what happened. Maybe I closed it down, but let's now see what happens. So we got these two, a global and a public. Let's see what we get. All right, we're getting 12. All right, so oh, I see. All right, so what we have to do here is run, test it. We have to run this one to set the value of integer 5. We do that, we're not going to debug print this here at this point. Let's get that out of there. All right, and I want to show you just how, so you can access a module, and that's how you access a function within a module. You just type its name. All right. So let us see what happens now. Somehow I lost what I had. There's our 17. Debug. Dot print is your data. There's your 5, and debug dot print integer new. There you have it. So what was shown here is when things are global, we can access them and the value will change. We can set them. So here we have a global and a public. If this were public, it would be the same thing. And I'm just going to put that as a public. It wouldn't matter. So just to show you, we're going to get 17 either way. And we do. So to sum up and to wrap up on this portion, if I place, let me see if it's in here. No, right. If I place, and I can place a function within a form and run it, or a subroutine within a form and run it. Again, a function you would run multiple times. A subroutine you would run that here and there. All right, you wouldn't run it that much. And then, as we said, where the variables are declared. So if I declare a variable in one of these private events, it's only going to be alive and native for the time it's in that event. If I run a variable here that is public, any one of these should be able to access it. Okay, so why don't we show that? Hang on a minute. I don't know what happened here to this particular form. I'm going to delete and recreate that form. Something's weird. I must have. So we're going to close this and say delete it. And we should get rid of our code too. Let's go in and see that it's gone. And it is. All right, I'm going to create another form with 2 buttons on it to show you form design. That's what I want. So we're going to create 2 buttons here. We're going to copy and paste. And we're going to have here press 1, press 2. Right, so we're going to go in here and CMD P1, whoops, and CMD P2. All right. So we go into our event. We're going to save this, by the way, as form test again. And we're going to go to our on-click routine as we did. Go to our code builder. And here we are. And now we see the option explicit and everything. So we're going to set the variable. So integer data equals 5. Integer new equals 10. And debug dot print integer data plus integer new. All right, so when we run this first button, we should get 15. Let's go in here, go to form. All right, let's see what we got. We did get 15, which is good. Now, what's interesting is we're going to go over here without having to do that again, and we're going to go, well, this command button 1 here. I don't know why it didn't set it. Let's go back into design view. I thought it did. Let's see, did I? I didn't. I didn't save it. CMDP2. All right. Oh, wait a minute. Got to make sure you type that in. All right. So we're going to open this up again. Click this one again. Not that it matters, but we're going to, wait a minute. All right, we should see 15. We do. And now what we're going to do is we're going to come up here and take P2 and open that. And we're going to see now what happens if we just debug print that. Right? So, right? So, probably should get another 15. And we do. But here's something interesting. These two variables here are global, already public to everything, okay? If I had placed them, and let's see what happens if I do. Got to get rid of them from there. In here, we want to see what would happen. Not defined, so we got to get rid of this little guy here because we have no variable defined. That's sure compiling check. Make sure it's syntax. Try it, obviously he's not going to see it there either. So once we remove it globally, those modules can't see it anymore because it's now within this form. It's not global. Let's see what happens now. Press the first one, 15. Press the second one, 15. Okay. Let's have this one plus 15. Right, so we press the first one, we get hopefully 15, and we do. May have hit it more than once. Press the second one, we get 30. Okay. Now, what happens if I were to take these and place them only within this sub? Well, this one here will not have access to it. Let's try that, and let's see what happens, just to show you. And now, we can't put public, we have to dim. Because we do that, we do debug. Watch what happens. Not going to like it. Can't do that, so we got to dim those, declare implicitly. All right. And now, uh-oh, we don't have access to it here. So I can hit save, even though it fails compiling. I can come in here and hit 1. It'll be fine. We'll get our 15. And if I hit 2, I'm going to error out. Yeah, not defined. So in scope here, what we found out is that if a variable goes from being global to only in a form, Anywhere you can access that variable is gone. And that's, by the way, this little square is to stop your code from running. I'm going to comment this out like that. Commenting that, you put an apostrophe, it goes away. And actually, we're going to just take this away completely. So that's the interesting thing about scope, where that variable is. As I said, you have three possibilities. Global in a module, doesn't matter which module, every event will have access to it. If you place it within a form as a public, only that form has access to it. And I could do it from another form to prove that to you. And if I put it in a private an event procedure, only that procedure has access to it. This is really powerful stuff. Okay. And this is what scope is about. Okay. So, and by the way, we'll look up here at our navigation area. You can save, import, or export and this is a module. That's what that's really for, modules. Okay, mostly. If I hit import, it's going to look for VB. Well, it could all three of them: a form, basic, or a class. I'm going to cancel that for a minute. And then, of course, exports the same way. Edit, I can edit stuff that's going into here. I can do a find. We'll show you that at another time. We kind of went into this whole thing about what you can see and what you can't see. Turn off, turn on. I'm not going to get to the locals and watch window yet. Insert, obviously a procedure. Let's see what happens if I insert a procedure here. We'll see what would happen. And it's saying which one do you want. So is it public? Is it private? And what's its name? So let's try new test. And let's make it a function, and let's make it public, and let's see where it puts it. And it puts it right there. All right. And you see the word function. Let's try that again. Insert procedure. Now we're going to do a sub, new sub. We're going to make this one private. Invalid procedure name. Well, I can't have a space in that. It doesn't like that. So just so you know, NEW. We're going to do the underscore sub. That should work fine. And there's your private sub. I could go public sub if I want. What's the difference? Private sub, it will run, but it will run. I don't think it's going to be accessible from every single procedure in the form. So it's one of those I wouldn't deal with too much. I'd probably use a public if I did. Insert procedure. We're going to do a property. And we're going to do a public property and property new. And let's see what that gives us. And wow, so this one here, you see public property and let property by val and new val. So it's already defining certain types of variables for a property. I'm not going to get to properties yet at all. But going back to this insert here, this little, and it really is, and here's a checkbox, all local variables is static, meaning they can't be changed. Static is something that can't be changed. You wouldn't want that. Um, and so what we have here usually is going to be a function or a subroutine, and it's going to be either public or private. All right. Properties you probably won't see too much of. Module and class module. I don't know what the insert file is going to do, but I guess it's a text file. If you wanted to do that, you can do it. I've never used it before. Debug, we went through this kind of a little bit. You're going to see more of it as we go. Run. This is for really running a macro. it's saying run sub or user form, which is F5, and that's really what it should be. So let's see here if I can run it from here. Is it just F5? No, it's pulling up the macro window. Try function F5. No, nothing. Some reason it's not running on there, but anyway, went through tools a little bit. On there, the properties are interesting. You could name this project, and you can also password protect it, but be warned, if you forget it, you're done. Uh, Pretty much done. Don't worry about add-ins and the window here. You can have different ways of showing the windows and so on. And so the scope idea here is most important for variables, for understanding where to connect with data. So when I'm running, whoa, this this form here, and I'm pressing these buttons, what I'm doing is I'm executing this click event on the button. Okay. And as I said, you have a whole bunch of events here. You got to make sure you choose the right event. That's another portion of scope. That's extremely, extremely important. Now, before we close this, let us take a look at our database and what is not working. We're going to say yes, just leave it there. Let's go to our main. Now, on this one here, if I were to hit one of these and activate them, which I just did, you notice I'm not refreshing this form. I'm going to go Shift F9 to do the requery on it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up to my table and start inactivating a few of my books, more of them here and maybe here. That's good. We need a way of knowing the scope in which to get to items. So let's look at books here. Let's look at some code that's in here. I'm going to get rid of one. I don't want to confuse you with this. Notice you have below this one here, you have me form requery. When you're able to access an object, the me command, in this case, the checkbox and the form are there. So if I type in me and dot, IntelliSense will come up with methods and other things to run, but it will also come up with controls. And you'll see these controls with these sort of hands that are pointing to them. This undo is a method, by the way. Those are accessible too. All right, so what it's saying is that if we look into that particular form, I'm going to close this for a minute. Here it is, it's open, good. In here, go to properties. Anything that is accessible here can be accessible via me, which is sort of an immediate connection, right? And let's go back to it here. That's why if I did something like me.lbl, I'll get to my labels and so on. Question. Under the text ISBN, I ran this piece of code. I looked for the subform for authors to requery it. So in other words, when I click text ISBN on there, all right, and that is, I don't even know why I have it on there. Hold on a minute. Let me just check it. I should have it. Let's go into my forms. Right, so if I click on this, I'm changing this. So let me just see here. Properties. Oh, I shut it down, I'm sorry. And I should have an event here for clicking, and I do. And, oh, I see. This is DE Books, yeah. So here, not only am I requerying
the one here, and I don't even need this one here, by the way. I don't even know why it's here. Um, I'm not doing anything to that, let's face it. But here I'm requiring the author's subform, right? And I'm also changing its caption to the label that's there. That label, I'm changing its caption to add in the author, the title to the author label. But here, if I want to requery, now actually I'm not going to requery the author's subform. That's not what I'm going to do. What I would do is I'd come over here to this object, and I've got to select the boundary to see what object it really is. I go into all. And so the actual source is this S subform DE books that you see all on the left over here. But the name of it is that one. And that's the name that you have to look for. In this case, they're different. Not really good practice. Okay. Kind of inverted them, but in the sense it is good. You don't want to name the subform the same thing as its source. It's really not something you want to do. So what I can do here, but I want to be careful. I'm going to leave it right now. I don't want to change it because once you start changing things, it can create, you got to make sure everything that is there is that has been changed as well. Anything pointing to it has been changed. We're going to put that in there just like that. And you notice it's very different than what I have there. We're going to debug and compile, and we're going to save it. And then we're going to come back to our database, and we're going to close this and close this. So we're going to open up our main. And as you can see, there's only 4 there. We're going to go to activate book. We're going to press 1, and 5 showed up. Now, you see how it did it? It refreshed it, and 6. It now adds it back in automatically, and it's really sweet. Now, if I try to hit activate book again, I shouldn't see this. So we got to add more code to that. And you're going to see how that will work. It's going to be really, really neat. But now, I haven't added anything to the inactive one either, which I can do very easily. Um, but this code right now, let's go back to it. What it says is look at the forms collection, look at DE main, look at the subform books DE, the form object, and requery it. Refresh it as soon as I make that change. And then once I do, since it's now going to be active, it should appear within that, and it does. And then close it. Now, is this the proper procedure? Well, the first item is to make it true. Now here, we would query the form here to get it out of that form. It's going to go away from there, which it should, but it's so fast that it happens so quickly we don't even see it because it queries the form, it removes it, it queries the subform, closes it, and we're right back at the main form where we're seeing the new data added back in. It's so fast within the blink of an eye, you can't see it. Um, and so this is what happens. Okay. What we're going to do here too is create some command buttons to move up and down. And that way we'll know where we are. And we might even throw in, I've got to see, but we need to find a way of making sure we know where we are, what one we're on, which particular record we're looking at. But as you can see here, this code works, but it's not exactly what we should be doing. Um, so what we can do here is on the edit one, okay, we can then run the same piece of code so that when we select edit, it'll change this and we'll know what author we're on, or we can use another technique as well. All right, so we learned about scope with variables and we learned about scope with looking at forms or looking at objects, controls, forms, objects, whatever it might be. And you saw both instances here. One, I'm looking at the immediate the immediate word, the me word, is pointing to the form I'm on. I can see anything from that form, but when I don't have that form available to me, right, then I go here to the forms collection and I find it through where it is. Word of warning, when you get to navigation, it's really even more complicated. It's cool, but it's complicated. Um, Now here, just to quickly end this, um, if I were on this main form here, go to design view, go to properties, and I dropped it down, I would see the subforms here. I have access. So me would work there. If I were doing something there, then me works great, right? And okay. So in terms of scope, you have to know where the controls are, what forms they're on, how to point to them, how to query a form or even a control, uh, how to set a variable correctly, whether it's in a private event, whether it's in a public event, whether a public variable to a form, whether it is a public or global variable to the entire database. These are going to be crucial and important when we do the coding we're going to do. When we come back, we're going to start learning about routines, different types of, well, not routines, I'm sorry, different types of statements that you can make and how they're evaluated and what happens before we get into record sets and looking at data, which is going to be huge. So, this is, I'm the database guy. Like and subscribe. Stick with me wherever you are. Have a great night, evening, morning, or whatever.